I'm known in the community as a Gubby Gubby elder, although I have connectedness to the Butchulla as well as the Jinnaburra people. The township was named after a mountain very, very close here, the Ewa Mountain. But then the township was then renamed in the late 1800s to that of Eumundi. The clan that was here, the leader of which the name Eumundi was chosen by the people here. And I see that as a tremendous way in which those other than First Nation people also acknowledge the importance of being able to ensure that this place will always be considered First Nations. I also see Eumundi as a place that has people from all diverse walks of life who have come here to settle, but they've also come here to gather. You can see the world in Eumundi. It's such a very small place, but every aspect of every representative nation on this earth can be seen here in this place on a Wednesday or a Saturday.
The mill belonged to my grandfather's father. There was an opportunity in Eumundi that my grandfather saw to rebuild his father's sawmill out at main camp as a sugar mill. And they built the mill, had it all set up, and the farmers planted sugarcane. But during the winter, the sugarcane all got frosted and died. So the mill closed, unfortunately, and Eumundi could have had a sugar mill. So they pulled down the sugar mill and brought it into Eumundi and rebuilt it as the original sawmill that was down at Blybly. In those early days, there wouldn't have been very much more than the sawmill, because a lot of the timber was used to build the houses, to build the hotels. It was a steam mill. There was a water well that they dug. The starting and knock-off time was blown from the steam through a whistle that my grandfather made, and it could be heard all over Eumundi. 8 o'clock in the morning, it'd blow the whistle and they'd all go to work. And then at lunchtime they blew it again and they'd all go over to the pub and have lunch and blow the whistle at 1 o'clock, and they'd know to come back and, and knock off time, of course, they blew it again. So it was a regular feature in Eumundi, the whistle. Everyone knew the time by that whistle.
There are a number of groups across our community from outside Eumundi who regularly use the hall. The care they take reflects their understanding of what this hall's about. It's the people who use it who feel that connectedness. It just has a feel about it, an ambience about it. Etheridge's had the local mill and the timber was all milled locally. I mean, a lot of that was done in kind or no payments exchanged. They felt a need for it. And it's been added to. I mean, the annex was added, the stages at the back were added, we've refurbished. It adapts to the times, but always with that idea of what was their original intent.
It's great to see the old pictures of when they first started putting the trees in for the fallen soldiers in 1919. You can see the little white picket fences around the trees, but it wasn't till the 1960s that the population of Eumundi said they wanted to change the name of our main street from Main Street to Memorial Drive, which is a much more fitting name for that street. And it also gives the town its character. Without those trees, our town, I don't think, would look the same. Also at school, our ANZAC Day ceremony, those trees become part of that ANZAC Day ceremony, where we walk along the street following the procession down and we stop at one of the trees. The bell rings 20 times for the fallen soldiers, and the bell came from the Catholic Church up Gridley Street. They post the wreaths, and most of the wreaths are made by the school children, and it's really significant being under the trees and everybody's really respectful. You don't hear a word out of the children. Being under the trees, it sort of makes it more special. So that's a really, important place in Eumundi.
Well, I was born in Eumundi 78 years ago and lived here ever since, mate, yeah. And we did mechanical repairs and sold petrol and spare parts, yeah. I worked with my brother for 20 odd years and then I bought it off him. Yeah, tractors and cars and just rotary hose, just about anything, yeah. I used to do a bit of work for Bert Rudd's car. That was Kevin Rudd's dad. I think it was a blue, like an old Dodge or something like that, yeah. He was a good bloke, yeah. But I used to be pretty busy and what have you, and somebody had a flat tyre and just pull it out the front there. But I wouldn't block a footpath. But a lot of people did call me Curbside Motors instead of Eumundi Motors. Yeah.
When I was young and we first arrived here on the Sunshine Coast from the Torres Straits, my father brought us children down here, and Eumundi was one of the first places we stopped off on. I remember us camping in the park there for a few days, and it seemed to be a place where people on their travels would come, whether they were coming from down south or up north, they'd land here. This was a place where we always came back to. Everyone used to go to the Eumundi Hotel, and it was just like a really community hippie vibe feel. The kids would play in the park, people would come over in the park and hang out, and then they'd cook, and there'd be barbecues and people cooking out of the back of their cars. Now you can't drive your car through the park because it's all protected and it's all very well done and beautiful. But yeah, back then you could park up under the trees and camp there for as long as you wanted. But back in the 70s and 80s, this place was magnificent. You couldn't even imagine, if you didn't live here before, what it was like to actually live here and be a part of it.
I've worked at the market, Eumundi Markets, for 26 years, having my own stall there with different products. It was a lot smaller. There was not as many stalls. It was all grass. It could often get muddy with the rain, so quite often I'd dig a trench next to me, a bit naughty, but just to let the water. I was making my own ceramic dinnerware and selling that. This is just one of the little bowls that we used to make with the feet, but I used to do the floral designs and fish and starfish, awesome, but we always worked in blue and white. And I made some awesome friends and acquaintances from the market, which people I'd never normally meet. So even to the point where one of my clients would come from America every year to buy my ceramics. My fellow stallholders were so wonderful to me. And in those days, it was more like a family that you had. It's such a great thing especially for women, because they can have that choice to be at home with their children, where in actual fact, I used to take my babies to the market. And I think the market's a wonderful thing for families that want to do that. They've really transformed it into a major, major event now. And there's really no other market like it that allows people to create and sell their own wares at a great place like Eumundi.
Here's this gorgeous little town, markets, beautiful memorial trees, tiny community, pretty feisty, quite active, achieving well above their wage. I couldn't believe that there wasn't a little community magazine or newspaper, and there had been one that lasted 5 minutes years before. So I asked a few people around, and I set up Eumundi Green, which was a fortnightly magazine, and I was the editor and journalist, and my husband sold some ads. And so I carried that community role for a decade. I think most people would say I played a straight bat. You know, I had the fire in the belly for the community. I just thought it was a piece of, kind of modern day magic that was taken for granted.
Our main place that we loved to visit and still love to visit was Dick Caplick Park. And that was named after Richard Caplick, who was a tree feller in Eumundi. But later on, he always loved nature and loved trees, and he went around and he replanted almost the whole town. And the kids just adore it. My son had his 6th birthday there, them all playing up on the roof of the little train there. Well, a few years back, that got taken away when the whole park was revamped, but now it's back. My grandson goes on that roof quite often, and I remind him of the story of his father doing exactly the same thing. That was land where the old sawmill was, and the railway used to go through at the back of the park. And apparently Dick Caplick just decided to plant up that cleared land, and then it just morphed into a kids' park. It's hugely popular, and when you look at it, it's from 5-year-olds up to about 16-year-olds, all playing on everything.
I've lived in Eumundi for almost 22 years and I grew up here. I just loved everything about growing up in Eumundi, growing up with the markets. One afternoon there was a little old lady sitting outside the Eumundi pub with a box of puppies. We walked past and we went, "Mum, please, 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 can we have this puppy? Please, please." And she went, "No way, we've already got 2 dogs at home, we don't need another one." We wore her down. So we had this tiny little puppy that we got from the Eumundi pub. You know, what's more Eumundi than the Eumundi pub? And of an afternoon, after swimming, park, bakery, we would bring Dougal into town and go for a walk, sort of from the end of the housing all the way down to the pool and then back again. That was our little afternoon exercise. It's such a small town that, you know, everybody knows everybody. You can say hello. To me, it feels really safe and loving to be here as an adult.